Today's workshop is HireAbility Vermont Services for Youth with Hearing Loss, Core Transition Services, and Regional Counselor for the Deaf Services. I'm excited to introduce you to Kate Parrish, HireAbility Coordinator and Counselor of Deaf, DeafBlind, and Hard of Hearing Services, Joey Dutson, HireAbility Vocational Counselor for the Deaf, DeafBlind, and Hard of Hearing, and Cara Haynes, HireAbility Transition Program Manager. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome. And I'm really appreciating that you were able to join us today to see our new HireAbility Vermont. So many of you may not be familiar with the agency. It is a state agency through vocational rehabilitation, same as other agencies within that echelon. And our name reflects what our work currently is engaged in. I'm going to turn it over to the next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. My name is Kate Parrish. And I wear a couple of different hats, actually. I'm the coordinator of Deaf, DeafBlind, and Hard of Hearing Services, as well as I help support my team who works with me. And that covers hard of hearing and deaf individuals. We also have a transitional team for youth, and that's people of all different sorts of abilities. I provide direct counseling services with folks who are signers, who are deaf, and that primarily cover the areas in Western Vermont. We also have 12 different other partners or linkages that we have made, and between all of us, we've serving people with different degrees of hearing loss or hearing abilities, people who are already in the working world. So next, please. Hi, everybody. My name is Joey Dutson, and I am a vocational counselor. I work with deaf, blind, hard of hearing, people with various degrees of hearing loss in the Eastern Vermont sector of our state.
Hi, and I'm Cara Haynes. I'm the Transition Program Manager for HireAbility Vermont. So I oversee the transition services provided by transition counseling staff in our 12 regional offices around the state. Next slide. So as I said, our transition core services are offered around the state. So we have about 25 transition counselors who each cover multiple high schools in their geographic region. So every high school has a transition counselor assigned to it. And each transition counselor also works with a youth employment specialist through our partners at the Vermont Association of Business, Industry, and Rehabilitation, also called VABER. We work with high school students who are currently receiving services through an IEP or a 504 plan, or, and this may be the category that some folks with hearing loss fall into, folks who might be eligible for one of those plans, but who are not currently receiving them. So if you have a student who is actually really successful, but doesn't have a need for a 504, but at some point may have been on a 504 or may need one in the future, that is a person that we can likely work with still. The initial meetings with a transition counselor and the youth employment specialist will really focus on what is your student interested in, what experiences do they want to have, and what do they need to be successful as they look forward to the world of work or training and education. And we are going to work with youth on exploring jobs and careers, participating in work-based learning experiences, talking about post-secondary education and training, and really helping them practice skills that they need at work and to be independent. And we have resources to help them build self-advocacy skills. Individuals can start working with us as young as 14 years old, so 9th grade, and can work with us across their lifespan. But transition counselors generally work with youth who are in the 14 to 25-year-old range. And in addition to the direct services with youth, we have strong partnerships within state government and outside of state government with the Agency of Education, Vermont Family Network, Vermont Center for Independent Living, just to name a few. And each local region has a local core transition team of all of the relevant partners that serve transition age youth, as well as we hold an annual interagency event for roughly 250 people each fall to bring together education providers, human services providers, as well as our transition staff. And that was coming up in October in Killington. So I'll stay on at the end for questions. That's a lot of information in a very short period of time. But we really want to focus today on the services and partnership that we have with Joey and Kate to serve youth who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind. Next slide.
Okay, now on this slide, you'll see that it speaks about and highlights the transition services and the transition program that we have. So as we said, 14 up until 22 or so. And so we focus specifically on employment services and getting ready for employment. Now, the regional counselors, the RCD program that we have, typically what you'll see is that we're accepting referrals from the transition team and the transition counselors. And so these are youth who are getting close to the graduation event, and or maybe they've dropped out of school, but they still are young and they're still going to be transitioning in some way, shape, or form, and we provide services to them. We focus specifically on supporting them and trying to guide them with education they're involved in or future education, and also accessibility to employment. And we try to figure out what those goals are and what the needs are to achieve those goals. So when we're working with the transition counselors, we're also providing them support. We have a team of people who are working with them to figure out school services also. And during these conversations, we may be talking about things that come up, such as students transferring from a school for the deaf. And now perhaps they're going back into a mainstream situation or to public schools. And we're trying to figure out how those supports will segue to each other in a smooth way. Perhaps you have a student who is planning to go into a summer assessment program or some kind of program that's going to get them ready for future goals. And so we're trying to figure out what the changes are, what are the accommodations for these programs, and what's going to happen in the coming school year, and what's going to happen when that's summer school, when that school year ends. So those are the sorts of discussions that we have. So we are definitely involved in meetings of that sort. So it's a team effort all the way around for our clients. So next slide, please. Okay, so one of the things that we do with our service provision, we typically offer to students or to people in our program. We have several resources. And we work with people who have all sorts of challenges that they already have or that come up. There's a great mixture out there. We're working with employment. Perhaps they have difficulty with housing. And so we're basically trying to figure out what the funding stream is, what the issues are with funding, and if we can help mitigate that in any way, shape, or form. There are other personal things that occur. There are sometimes conflicts. There are complications that arise. And for those situations, we come up with different ideas. We try to connect them with other programs, other resources, and give advocacy and support in other ways with other issues that may come up. Sometimes they're not specifically employment related or education related. For example, we have the Vermont Center for Independent Living, and they have deaf peer advocates, and they supply information, advocacy, whatever a person might need to help them figure out how to prioritize what they need to do next. How to help them navigate through these personal issues they may be facing, crises, or just challenges that come up in their life, and helping them make the linkages for that. Sometimes there are things related to poverty. Sometimes there are things in the socioeconomic bracket that are making difficulty for them. And so we're trying to figure out in any way, shape, or form how we can help them in any regard in their lives. Basically, we are coming up with other programs like Vermont Advocacy Services and other systems that aren't necessarily for deaf and hard of hearing people. Individuals who are struggling with possibly judicial system issues. We do sometimes see legal issues come up, and so we try to help people with that. There are also difficulties with accessing medical systems, medical care. That's something else we can help with. We try to hook them up with people who can help them in the hospitals or with the judicial system, and try to find ways to train them and help them make their own process more smooth and navigate it more easily on their own. But basically, we are advocating and supporting individuals through whatever systems they find themselves in that may be presenting these problems. We also coordinate with other state agencies. The Department of Families and Children Services, and also Economic Services. So part of the services they receive might be assistance with employment and with training. And so the teams will be interdisciplinary and be able to dovetail with the employment services to make sure they're getting everything they need. Okay. And so part of the explanation of all these various services, the organizations and deaf services, the deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind community is very small in Vermont, and sometimes it's not really fully aware of all the different services they can avail themselves of. Sometimes when you let them know this, it's really helpful and they can take the ball and run with it from there. But basically, we need to make sure that the information is out there so the deaf, hard of hearing and deafblind community can be aware of those services and avail themselves of them. And next, I'd like to talk a little bit about job searches and supports for that, how that goes, how that occurs. What happens is that we try to match them with a particular job that would work for them. We try to help them envision what would be the sorts of things that would help you succeed in those kinds of endeavors. And so we make lists with them. We determine whether they know how to work with interpreters in different venues. And if they're going to an interview, what would that be like? If they need specific devices for accommodations, what would be the best thing they need? Mostly it's just find what are the things that will fit them the most to achieve the goals that they want to achieve. And we're very big on list making for people so that we can check off those lists. Because if somebody's not necessarily sure what they're going to do, or they're trying to have a trouble figuring it out, or they're struggling in any way, shape, or form, then we want to make sure they have the assistive technology or the resources or the suggestions for equipment or different things that would help them as they try to enter the working world and get through this. We do partner with VABER, and what that is the Vermont Agency for Business and Industry and Rehabilitation. We partner very closely with them. And what we do with them basically is try to utilize their networks, join them with our networks to find all the businesses in Vermont and job coaches who would be able to help our clients out. We provide the support, as I said, and also cover letters. We help them with resumes. We're helping them get all of those job ready skills that they need, like let them know what mock interviews would be. We put them through their paces with mock interviews and role playing with that, and how to utilize interpreters during these situations so they are ready for that when they're going out there. We can do some assessment for career assessment ideas. What would be the thing that would find your bliss? What are the things you would like to do? Are there programs you can take for 2 weeks or 4 weeks? And if they're exposed to different things and they find something that strikes their fancy, then let's look at this and find out whether this is a viable option for them and help them achieve that. We also have employment CTs. I'm sorry, the interpreter missed that. I'm sorry, the interpreter missed that. Can you say again? Or I'll switch over to the other interpreter now. Hold on 1 second. We're switching interpreters. Thank you.
I'm just going to back up a little bit. So the VIBRE, the Vermont Business Industries and Rehab, we also partner with another program of theirs. And then we specifically work with blind, hard of hearing, deaf blind, And then we know maybe we know the cultures, and we know how to better service deaf, blind, and hard of hearing participants. And we get this bigger vision, if you will, of services that there are needed. And we also empower the employee, to make sure that they can have successful conversations when they need to with their employer. And just to clarify, it's more of our working together so that we understand, deaf, blind individuals and their communication needs and their signage, and how they we can support our participants successfully and to find employment for them. So it's nice that, we can share our services with our participants so we can find them employment, help them. In education, we also have two different kinds. We have progressive services and progressive education services. The progressive employment. And by that, I mean the individual themselves. In high school, they may be struggling about their career path, and they're trying to figure out what skills they need in order, what education they need. So we help them to be able to research different systems and different career paths to be able to practice some and get some training in advance before they decide on a career path. And they also do skill development through training, and that will hopefully lead to, of course, employment. And sometimes students may be unsure about what they really want to do, whether or not they want to go to college or not. And that might be something that we can do a tour of the college and just make sure that they're comfortable there. And we also give them advice during that time to hopefully set up what kind of resources may be available for them, such as tutoring services at the college or something for equal access and support that they need. So it provides them the opportunity ahead of time to make a decision. And also they may take one course and just to try to see whether or not they like it or not, and whether or not they like the college environment, and then they can see if they want to continue. And also we have some participants that absolutely do not want to go to college. And maybe they feel like it's too expensive, or, they're just not comfortable in that environment. So it's a good way for them to get the experience ahead of time first. And possibly too, it's just like a hands-on experience first. So it's like a training opportunity for them to see what the environment would be like. Also, just to see whether or not it's a better fit for them. And then also we have training programs as well. We provide support for them during their employment as well. So that would help them in their career path. And we give them supports and resources that they need as well. And the progressive employment, basically what that is that it would include explanation of information such as interview skills and what the businesses are offering in the position, and they get a look at what is being offered, and so that they can have an experience beforehand. And then they can see whether or not they feel like it would be a good fit for them, or maybe it's not a good fit for them. But then this is information that they can get, and they can volunteer for a little bit in a business and just give it a try and test it out.
They can approach the they can approach the businesses and ask if there's accommodations that they'd be willing to give to them.
And they could try it first just to see, and it's like a practice for them. So during that time as well, it would be the employer and the participant as well. And we also talk about and explain accommodations that could be possibly had as well. And when they leave that experience, they could either have a referral from that experience or make a decision to go ahead and pursue that career. And we do support them during employment training and education as well.
Job retention.
Job retention, there's a lot of information with looking for a job. It's not only that, it's also on the employment site as well. People sometimes are struggling, so we are involved so that we can lend support and be able to help them during that job. And if a person is having communication issues at the job as well, we can lend support. Sometimes we realize there's maybe policy change or something that, you know, people may be behind in the information in the news, so that, you know, this would be a vocational rehab counselor's responsibility to be able to assist them and be able to schedule an appointment with them, sit down, maybe get a group meeting together to have a discussion about what's happening in the workplace there, and then be able to offer and lend support. And then that way the participant will have better interactions with the individuals that work there and have better communication as well. I know sometimes it's challenging with interpreting services and getting interpreting services, and also we empower the deaf participant to be able to actively participate in that process, be able to know how to get an interpreter and be able to get that technical assistance that they need to successfully continue in their employment environment. The next slide, please. So we have a listing of various links here on this resource page. So you can see the RCD program, as well as the Vermont agencies and the business industries rehabilitation page, and their information, what they have to offer. And also the youth program services. And the link also for the various resources that are available and in Vermont and also outside of Vermont as well. And services for deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing individuals, and accommodations as well, and educational classes, education in general, and sharing information and resources. You know, we work collaboratively as a team. We have also legal agencies involved as well as these agencies. There's a listing of resources available. Next slide, please. So this is our contact information. So please feel free to contact us at any time, myself or Joey. And we cover the western part of Vermont. So if you know of anyone in this western part of Vermont, please contact the two of us. And the eastern part of Vermont, you can also make that contact there as well. But any one of us is fine to contact, and then we would be able to connect you to the correct person to contact if you didn't correctly contact that person. So if you have any questions about anything, or you're working in a school and you have any questions, you can absolutely contact us.
And Kara is available too.
Okay,
I guess we're
yes.
on the next slide.
Yes. So are we in our question phase of the presentation? I think so. So I will go ahead and read the questions that I see in chat. And folks, please feel free to put your questions in here. So can you explain more about what support you provide for students with additional needs who need ongoing one-to-one support at a job? I work with a student who was still in high school and had an after-school job, but was told HireAbility was not able to provide that support if the student hadn't yet graduated, but the school said they couldn't provide support if the job was not during school hours. The student graduated in June, but is still doing academic work at the school during the school day and on an IEP for the next few years. It also sounded like there was not enough staffing in the student's area to provide support.
I can take that one. From the context of the question, it sounds like the student might have a developmental disability, given that they're extended high school and the need for on-the-job supports. And unfortunately, it can sometimes not be a smooth transition. So HireAbility does have job coaches in our offices, but those are intended for short-term supports. So in the situation where a youth does need longer-term supports, and we do rely on the school district to provide work-based learning supports in the form of a job coach or a paraprofessional with them at work, but they often don't have the capacity to provide that support outside of the school day. And the youth having a job is one of the criteria when they become supported by developmental services to be a funding priority for employment supports. So I think it's a very nuanced question about how you set up a system that supports the youth and until they officially leave high school has a staff person and funding attached to it. So I don't know if that actually answered your question, but if you want to email me some specifics, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about the details of the situation you're talking about. Because the information you have is unfortunately, at least on the surface, correct, but I think there's some deeper dive that can be done in terms of problem solving. So hopefully that helps.
Erin, would you like to, I think you can unmute yourself. So did you want to follow up on your question before I read the next one?
Yeah, you're going to post the email addresses at the end?
Yes. Yeah, I can put my email in the chat for you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, it seems like there's kind of a gap.
Yeah.
Nobody covers, and it's a little bit hard.
Okay, so I have another question here. How does HireAbility work on a transition where the student starts working in Vermont in high school, but transitions out of state to an undecided job or community college?
I think that falls into my kind of category. So generally, if the student intends to return to Vermont, then Vermont HireAbility could continue working with them. We work with a lot of college students who leave state for their education. And as long as they intend to come back here for summers, and at least at the start of their college education plan to return to Vermont at the end, HireAbility Vermont would continue to work with them. If they move to another state and intend to just permanently live there, we would facilitate connecting them with the voc rehab agency in the state that they are moving to. Not every state provides the exact same level of services or the same process to access services as HireAbility, so we can support them to walk through that as much as possible. But every state is a little bit different in terms of what they provide and what documentation they need. So it just depends on if they want to continue to claim Vermont residency or if they want to just go forth and reside in New Hampshire or Vermont or Massachusetts or wherever.
Okay, next question. Can you walk through exactly what would happen if a high school student needed services? RCDs do not support students until age 18.
I think it's a partnership prior to 18. I think our transition counselors are positioned in high schools to find out about students. So actually one of the biggest barriers I would say to our program is finding out what students need supports, especially if they're not on a formal plan. So an IEP or a 504 where we are routinely invited to those meetings. Once we are made aware of a student, it really is going to be assessing what their level of need is and what supports they already have. There are some school districts that have internal audiologists and hearing support staff. There are some districts that contract out through the UVM team, and so they have hearing loss support as part of their IEP. And there are some students who have none of that. And all of that will go into what consultation we get with Kate and Joey about each individual student and how soon and how much contact Kate and Joey should be having with that student and that team. Because if it's a student that doesn't have a lot of supports and they need more supports based around their deafness or hearing loss, that would be a case where Kate and Joey would be called in probably sooner and play a more active role. But if it's a case where the student has a lot of supports on their team, it might be something that the transition counselor feels comfortable just being a team member until the student gets closer to graduation, and then we would bring Joey and Kate in for a more active role. Did I capture the PEP process correctly, Kate and Joey?
Yep, you were right on. You got it.
Okay, Jen, I think you asked this question. You had your hand up. Did you want to follow up to
Yeah,
that answer?
I did. I just wanted to say that as somebody who has been on teams of individuals that need this support, that I think that there is a gap there as well, that a lot of times the staff that are brought on to support kids in schools or high schools are not always involved in the transition, in the meetings with the transition counselors. So I think I think that's an area, that's a gap in the state, that even if they have the support on their team, it's not always part of that specific service where the transition counselor is working with a student. So that's why I was asking about RCDs working before age 18, because I had seen on the slide that it said they started age 18. So I'm happy to hear that they can be brought in earlier if needed for kids.
Thank you. And as always, communication is the most essential part of any team's functioning. And teams, even in the most well-intentioned teams, there can be silos created of they do the hearing stuff and we do the employment stuff and they do the education stuff. And that doesn't necessarily serve the student in the best way. So anytime that you can raise a hand when you're seeing that on a team and just call it out, I think it benefits the student ultimately.
Also, we at VFN do have a relationship with HireAbility. So if you have families who have specific questions, they can also call us, and we do communicate, pretty regularly with HireAbility folks. So we can also help to be that conduit when there are these gaps that families are seeing. Okay, I have a question here. Can teachers refer a student who is deaf, deafblind, or hard of hearing, or can a student self-refer?
I would say that yes. And I think I have had an experience where, there was a family member saw, that there was a program at the CT program and contacted us. And so, that referral came from a different kind of source, not just the school. So we're glad to make those connections with the people of any kind of connection. And also sometimes, things happen outside of school as well. We want to be able to give guidance to other possible places where they could get what they need, because sometimes someone's just curious about, like, maybe summer camps, for instance. Where would those be? Where would be appropriate placements? And we would have that information or be able to point them to that. So, we'll sometimes have family come and, we'll be supporting family members who are struggling with the communication with the deaf or deafblind or hard of hearing person. So it can come from all kinds of quadrants. So basically, we are providing support and ideas and connections to the right places, not necessarily always even ours.
And one cool part of our new website rebranding that we've had in place for, I think, about 18 months is that folks can self-refer for services on our website. So if you go to HireAbility VT.gov, I believe the website is in the PowerPoint, you can fill out an online form, and an admin staff in one of our offices will connect you with the correct geographic office, and somebody will reach out to you. And if you communicate that you're looking to work with an RCD, they will make sure that the referral gets to Kate or Joey directly.
Okay, Nick, I think perhaps you'd like to follow up. You asked that last question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much for answering that there. I appreciate it. I'm from the Vermont Center for Independent Living. I'm the information and referral specialist, and I also do the equipment distribution specialist for the Vermont Telecommunications Fund. One follow-up I want to do is this question was interesting to me, particularly as I am a person who is severely hard of hearing with progressive hearing loss, probably since a very young age, and I do have hearing difficulties despite having 2 hearing aids, and I'm learning ASL. And I'm just curious because I work with a lot of folks who are extremely low income, and having a deafblind or hard of hearing child, they might be nervous about cost. Like, for example, for myself, I didn't get a hearing aid for the first time until maybe my late 30s. So I had a lot of language deprivation just myself. And parents of hard of hearing kids aren't always informed about things like ASL, especially at an early age. So I'm just curious, my question was there just because that's some of the things I experienced in my life. And obviously that was a very long time ago, but also just concerns I have for younger people who maybe money is really tight and their parents are worried about, like, oh, if we get involved in this, it's probably going to be costly. Is there information out there for teachers to kind of work with those parents and be like, this is going to be beneficial, this is going to follow them throughout their lives? And also, lastly, for students who, again, maybe their parents, sadly it happens, are not very supportive, but they really want assistance and they need ways to be connected to these programs too. Thanks.
Yes, I think that in Vermont, well, we have Governor Scott and his group that meet on a monthly basis. And there's a lot of different partnerships that come together that do show up at the table to try to address these gaps. And they're trying really hard to pull in as much as we can, as much as be able to build more robust systems for the population we're trying to service. And we do recognize that, there's just a lot of work left to do. All is not completed, nor will be. Things are still in development phases, but we need to do even more to make the support more robust and to think of even different ways to connect people with what they need, especially within the communities and the communities that we have here that we're trying to serve. So, we want Vermonters of all ranges of abilities, whatever, to be happy, to find success, to be fulfilled, and to find their way in their lives in whatever ways that we can assist them. We do have a director, Laura Siegel. And Laura Siegel is the director under the Department of Independent Living, and she is up at the state level. And one of the things they try to do is make linkages with different agencies, private and public sector, to be able to assist with more accessible Vermonters, more access for Vermonters to get their resources and what they need. And so the community members who have needs should be able to contact her directly. She is very good about listening to these concerns and trying her hardest to figure out any way possible to work the system and to make the content, make the context approachable to everybody, and even designed even better, and improve the design of the things that are even extant at this point. Also, there is in the legislature, they just passed a law, I believe that it was last year, about hearing aids. And that insurance must be able to cover hearing aids, the cost of hearing aids, even if they're bilateral, of any age. And so hopefully with the passage of this new legislation, that will take down that barrier that has been such a longstanding financial burden for parents, and the one that probably is the scariest for them if they're struggling financially already. But this is supposed to begin in 2024. That's when it's supposed to take effect. And so we'll see. And I believe that as a result of that, we'll be able to see with more healthcare coverage, we will see hopefully more people availing themselves of that, and the greater impact that will have on people's lives as a result.
And then just from a funding perspective, HireAbility does have funding to help people access employment. And in the past, and maybe not so much in the future with the change in insurance laws, we have been able to help fund hearing aids, but we've also been able to help fund things like FM systems or Rogers pens or interpreters for job interviews, things like that, really trying to think outside the box of what is the barrier to this person gaining employment, maintaining employment, or advancing within their employment. And so being creative with funding, but also access to assistive technology, all of those resources can be brought to bear.
Okay, Nick has posted another question. Are there ways deaf, blind, or hard of hearing students already involved in these programs can mentor or talk to students just getting involved in a peer networking way to encourage them?
So not specific to deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind students, but HireAbility in partnership with the Center for Independent Living and the Vermont Family Network does run a youth advocacy council. So that students with any disability can self-select to apply to be part of the youth council, and we work on advocacy priorities every year. So if you want additional information about that, there's information on the VCIL website as well as the HireAbility website. I don't know if Kate or Joey knows of any population specific ones that I'm not aware of.
The interpreter's muted.
Yeah, I think Kate was signing. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know anything specifically, but if anyone wants any information, they can certainly contact me directly.
I just want to.
But I hope that also people, we can have a discussion to also just develop more resources and information. But if we need to, we can certainly do that.
Right, and with the Youth Advocacy Council, VFN does have a YouTube workshop that was done in the beginning of summer, or really at the end of last school year, with Cara and some of the members of the Youth Advisory Council, and it's a really great workshop on what these youth do. So even as Cara said, it's a variety of disabilities, but that would be, I think that would still be an excellent place for youth with hard of hearing, deafblind to participate as well. Right, and Nick is just replying that Seth McCall is a wonderful co-worker and the Youth Advisory Council has done great work. So yes, I would definitely agree with that. It's a great group of kids. So that is on our website on one of those many workshops that we have recorded. So are there any other questions? Okay, Nick says that he would love to see more deafblind, and hard of hearing students involved. So Nick Sepulcall was on that video as well about the youth council. So I can certainly send that to you, the link that you can send out, but Sepulcall should also have that as she participated in that workshop.
And Nick, if you're aware of any youth or young adults that would like to be part of that, it's a simple SurveyMonkey link, and they can just submit their interest, and we will be kicking off our cohort for 23-24 in early October, I believe.
We have put out that information in our e-newsletter as well, as in VFN e-newsletter, the link to the workshop, as well as the link to the survey for interested youth to apply. So are there any other questions? No, thank you, Nick. So Nick is saying that his co-worker may know more youth than he does. Okay, we have a few more minutes. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Kate, Joey, and Cara, for all of this helpful information. For everyone else, you will see the link to an evaluation in chat, so please take a few minutes to complete it so we can make improvements and also to fulfill grant requirements. We have many more interesting workshops coming up that you can find details about those on our homepage of our website, along with the links to the previously recorded ones. We have tons of information on our website. Getting connected with us is easy. You can follow us, VFN, on Facebook, or you can join our closed Facebook page if you are a parent. We have two closed groups, one for all parents of children with disabilities or special health needs, and one for those with adult children. You can also sign up for our monthly e-news or check out our YouTube channel. We're here to help. Please contact us by phone or email. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Take care. Thank you for letting us present as well. Appreciate it.